U.S. President Donald Trump says Israel has agreed to Washington's peace plan aimed at ending the war in Gaza.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the proposal achieves Israel's war aims while providing a realistic path forward for Gaza. So what is in that 20-point plan?
Okay, so if Hamas accepts, it would mark an immediate end to the war. Humanitarian aid would immediately enter Gaza. Israeli forces would halt all operations in the enclave and withdraw to an agreed-upon line to facilitate a hostage-prisoner exchange.
Hamas must release all hostages, dead or alive, within 72 hours. In exchange, Israel will free more than 200 prisoners and 1,700 Palestinians who were detained after the October 7th attack.
Now, once Hamas frees the hostages, militants who commit to peace will be granted full amnesty and safe passage to receiving countries.
Hamas will not be involved in governing the enclave. A technocratic, apolitical Palestinian committee would temporarily lead Gaza, and it would be supervised by a so-called Board of Peace led by President Trump.
The committee will oversee the funding and redevelopment of the Strip. The White House's international groups have put forward investment proposals to rebuild the enclave. What's left, according to the U.S. and Israel, is Hamas's agreement.
Well, mediators from Qatar and Egypt have reportedly shared the plan with Hamas negotiators, who said they will review the plan, quote, in good faith. But Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu warned that if they reject the deal, Israel would have Washington's full backing to destroy the militant group.
But if Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President, or if they supposedly accept it and then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself.
I have a feeling that we're going to have a positive answer. But if not, as you know, Bibi, you'd have our full backing to do what you would have to do.
Well, Jessica Genauer, Senior Lecturer in International Relations at Flinders University, and she joins us on the show. Dr. Genauer, thanks very much, for being on the show this morning. I want to start by asking you about what Hamas might do. It's received the plan, that much we know, but I have to say I find it hard to disagree with analysts who say Benjamin Netanyahu only agreed because he doesn't expect the militant group to say yes to the plan, and also because, B, he doesn't think the Palestinian Authority is ever going to reform.
Yeah, so there's a question there of whether Hamas will accept the plan, and then also, even if they do accept, whether the plan can actually be implemented in terms of the practical reality on the ground. So I think that some parts of the plan, it could be that Hamas will agree to and will be implemented. That's around release of hostages in exchange for Israel's military withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, aid coming in to the Gaza Strip, and then also that release of Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails. So that part is somewhat more easy to implement, although there's still a question over where those hostages are and whether Hamas actually has full control over them being released back to Israel. But I think that other parts of the plan, even if Hamas were to agree, it's really not clear how they would actually be implemented in practice. So I'm talking about parts of the plan that refer to the ongoing governance of the Gaza Strip, where there's an idea for some kind of international governance arrangement, ongoing sort of peacekeeping in the Gaza Strip and reconstruction of the Gaza Strip, where again, the plan is quite heavy on international involvement in keeping the peace, this sort of stabilizing force in the Gaza Strip, with maybe a role for the Palestinian Authority at some stage in the future, but that's not clearly specified in the near term. So I think Hamas agreeing is one thing, but a second really critical thing is, could those more difficult, complex parts of the plan around governance and peacekeeping in the Gaza Strip actually be implemented in practice?
Yeah, Dr. Genauer, and given where things stand now, I wonder if Hamas has any room at all to negotiate some of the terms where it may have, some room to maneuver.
Hamas really does not have a lot of room to move at this stage. And, that's because I think what we're seeing that's different in this sort of peace plan proposal is that President Trump is clearly very keen on the plan and really trying to throw the full force of his leverage behind it as US president. So given that situation, actually Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't have as much room to maneuver either as he would probably like, in that he understands that Israel needs that very important relationship with the US, being sort of quite internationally isolated from other countries. So if Trump is really keen on the plan, he probably does need to agree to it, at least in large part. And similarly for Hamas, if, we're waiting to see exactly what's going to happen out of the current talks that also involve Qatar and Egypt. But if sort of the Qatari negotiators and Egyptian personnel really say to Hamas, look, you need to accept this, there aren't really any other options at this stage, Hamas does desperately need that withdrawal of Israeli military forces from the Gaza Strip. Most of Hamas leadership have been killed by now since, those October 7 attacks almost 2 years ago. The Gaza Strip has really been decimated in terms of infrastructure and, the way that people can sort of live and survive within the Gaza Strip. So Hamas does need to agree to something that would lead to an Israeli military withdrawal.
Okay, I understood, Professor. So it's very stark for Hamas. Either capitulate, surrender, or face a possible freer hand for Israel to continue what it's doing in Gaza. But I'm wondering, because we know that the Trump plan isn't the only plan. We do have the Blair plan. We also have the France-Saudi Arabia plan. Is there any scope at all for Hamas to say, look, let us stay relevant in some way, in some sort of a limited governance role in whether it's Gaza, the West Bank, or Lebanon?
So I don't think that there will be any chance for Hamas actors to do that. And that's because, the word Hamas has sort of become synonymous with those October 7 attacks. So as many other analysts have said before me, whilst you can disband a group or eliminate a group, you don't eliminate the ideas that drive that group. So I could see probably at most a situation where some actors who might now be associated with Hamas end up rebanding or rebranding under another group with a different name. But I really don't see, after that association between, Hamas really leading those October 7 attacks into Israel, I don't see any situation where the specific group called Hamas has any official role in a sort of a peace settlement or, ongoing governance of the Gaza Strip in future. And I think that is something that they probably pretty much understand at this stage, would feel quite lucky to get away with their lives, given the number of Hamas leadership who have actually been killed within the last 2 years, and probably understand that at some point they'll have to say, OK, we won't have any governance role in sort of a future Gaza Strip.
Yeah, and Dr. Genauer, just to follow up on the point that you made about Bibi not getting everything that he wants in this plan as well. I mean, some think that this deal was an imposition by Donald Trump on Mr. Netanyahu, just like how they believe that the U.S. president actually forced the Israeli leader to apologize to Qatar. Do you think so as well? And are there signs that point to this being a possibility, and could it backfire?
I do think that there is an element of President Trump finally deciding to use some of that leverage that he does have over Israel to say, OK, it's time to now make an agreement or to come to some kind of end to this phase of war that's been going on for almost 2 years between Israel and Hamas. And I think that President Trump is actually thinking primarily of a domestic US audience. So within the US, people are becoming increasingly dissatisfied with watching the war continue. And Trump himself wants to be able to say to his own US audience, I was the one who solved it. I was the one who fixed it. I was the one who made a deal. So I think Benjamin Netanyahu, whilst the plan is, it's relatively meets a lot of Israel's interests. There's that important release of the hostages, and Israel would have quite a strong role potentially in, maybe orchestrating or being involved in the future ways in which the Gaza Strip might be governed. But at the same time, there are some parts of the plan that those who are on the very far right in Israel would not be happy about and would say, oh, the plan is too lenient towards Hamas, or it's not going far enough. For example, it said that members of Hamas who, sort of are willing to commit to peace and to rescind their membership from the group could actually have safe passage out of the Gaza Strip. So that's one thing, for example, or the release of Palestinian prisoners from Israeli jails. So those are kind of things that those to the right, very far right in Israel, might actually say that the plan isn't going far enough in terms of punishing Hamas.
All right, thanks for your time today. We're speaking with Jessica Genauer. She's a senior lecturer in international relations at Flinders University.